This week we begin reading the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. And Vayikra, with its long, seemingly endless lists of sacrifices and rituals and purifications, can seem to be the book of the Torah that has less to do with our lives than any other. We don't have the dramatic stories of Genesis and Exodus, or the moral teachings that come in the book of Deuteronomy. And yet I would argue that Vayikra has never been more relevant than it is today. Our parashat this week identifies three different types of olah, of burnt offering. One which is given of cattle or sheep, another which is given from birds, and a third which is given from grain. And about each of these three, each time the Torah describes one of these three types, it concludes with the verse, "It is a burnt offering, a gift of pleasing odor to the Lord." Now, this would seem strange for the Torah, which is known for its economy of language, for never using two words if one word will suffice, to have repeated this phrase three times. Why couldn't the Torah say it once at the beginning, once at the end, and just have it apply to all of the three types of olah, the three types of burnt offering? But our rabbis of blessed memory, sensitive readers that they were, noticed one key difference between these three types of sacrifice. Each of them are offered the same way, in the same place on the altar, but there is one distinction between them, and that's price. A sheep or a cow is expensive. They're still expensive. A bird would be less expensive than a four-legged land animal, but still beyond the means of the poorest people in the community. But grain, everybody has grain. Everybody has enough flour that they could bring a sacrifice. And so we can imagine that there's a sort of a class structure here, that the rich will bring cattle or sheep, the poor will bring grain, and the middle class bring birds. The rabbis noticed that each of these sacrifices is described as a gift of pleasing odor to the Lord. And so the Mishnah in Tractate Menachot concludes by that this repeated teaching is to teach us that one who does a little and one who does a lot are the same, so long as the person directs their attention toward heaven. It's so easy for us to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others, not just in the obviously self-destructive ways in terms of beauty or wealth or smarts, but also in much more subtle ways. I'm not as kind as this person, not as religious as that person. But ultimately, we have to live our own lives. And the message that our rabbis see in this week's Torah portion is that each of these sacrifices, though very different in their monetary value, is of equal value to the Master of the world. And so whoever offers these sacrifices, whether it's a sheep or whether it's grain, so long as their heart is pure, so long as their intention is for the sake of heaven, God is satisfied with that sacrifice. And so it's my prayer that in this week of Shabbat Vayikra, that each of us can consider where our hearts are directed. And if our hearts truly are directed toward the sake of heaven, then let us be as satisfied with that gift as God is. Shabbat Shalom.
שירו לדושם שיר חודש, שירו לדושם כל הארץ, שירו לדושם